Hello, Indian.
Oh, Mr. Trump.
Did you vote Trump?
I vote Kamala Harris.
You know, she's not even fully
Sorry,
Indian.
what?
She's mixed with those people.
She's what?
What's up?
Trump!
I see you've made the right choice.
Mr. Trump, we love you. We will do anything for you. What do you want?
Let's go grab that border hopper. Get him. Get him. I'm feeling like Sleepy Joe. Make America great again.
I want to talk about this as an idea. The Indian American identity is in part formed by the idea of a model minority. It exists in contrast to identities of minorities in this country that have been neglected far longer than it has even existed. In other words, the Indian American identity is defined by this idea that it is better than the other people of color. With that, I would say the Indian American identity is rooted in some form of narcissism. By that I mean it exhibits this outward drive to display its superiority, but on the inside it fears that there's nothing superior about it. It fears that its perceived superiority isn't actually the product of its superiority, which it isn't. These two don't seek to uplift Indian Americans in any way. They seek to hold down other minorities so that Indian Americans can uphold their status as a model minority and feel reassured in its false sense of superiority. Because if this country is able to uplift Black and Latino Americans, the socioeconomic distance that defines the Indian American identity would be lost. And that scares them, which is why this is even happening. They want to neglect other minorities in the name of meritocracy to maintain their distance from those minorities and claim that everyone got what they deserved.
So breaking news, MAGA supporters are outraged because the Senate had asked Kash Patel if he had any acknowledgement or any information about any Democratic leader that has ties to the Epstein files, and Kash Patel responded back to the Senate that no, he does not have any recognition or information that any Democratic leader has any ties to the Epstein files. And MAGA supporters are outraged because that is not what they wanted to hear. Once again, the Senate had asked Kash Patel if he had any recognition of any Democratic Party leader that has any ties to the Epstein files, and he said no, that he has no names to drop of any Democratic leader connected to the Epstein files. I'll keep you updated on more information.
What's going on with Indians and MAGA?
As the Indian representative.
No, look, I mean, there is something interesting.
Well, yeah, look, that's Trump's DEI, Indian people, the dick-eating Indians, dude. There's so many Indians that love Donald Trump, like Vivek Ramaswamy. What a herb. That's if you don't know what a herb is what we called people in the 90s when they were being herbs. Like he's a herb. He ran for president and lost, obviously. And he ran for president, and his main thing was his opening line was, "God is real." So why'd he make you 5'7", Vivek? That's the guy. I don't know if he's 5'7", but he has 5'7" energy. And then I won't say his name again, because if you say it more than 3 times, he just pops up behind you.
Yeah, he pops up under the desk.
Let's end affirmative action, guys. All right, dude.
Vivek Ramaswamy. Yeah.
And then there's Usha Vance.
Oh, Usha Vance, yeah.
Who I'm praying for. I'm hoping she has Stockholm Syndrome, because otherwise, why is she with JD Vance? Right. Really? She has to. And then of course,
the king,
Kash Patel. If you don't, I'm not saying shit about Kash Patel. I'm not trying to get one of these one-way tickets to El Salvador, you know.
but everyone else was fair game.
Yeah. If you don't know Kash Patel, you guys don't seem that concerned. But every Indian knows Kash Patel. But if you don't know him, he's the director of the FBI, and people don't seem worried about him. But his real name is Kashyap Pramod Vinod Patel. He grew up in racist-ass Long Island with the name Kashyap Pramod Vinod Patel. He is out for revenge. You should be very concerned. I'm not a fan of the guy's politics, but if I get pulled over, that is my cousin, for sure.
Maybe you saw this headline and the Leopards Are Gonna Eat My Face song started playing in your head. I think it's really important that we break that down. If you're not familiar with the expression, it comes from this tweet. "I never thought leopards would eat my face," sobs woman who voted for the Leopards Eating People's Faces party. It's become common internet slang at this point, and there's a delightful account on here where they sing the Leopards Eating Faces song whenever there's a headline about conservative policies backfiring on their constituents. In this case, framing it that way I think misses the bigger picture. Here, Vivek Ramaswamy is kind of seen as voting against his own interests. Being a child of immigrants, he is supporting a party that's very anti-immigration. But now, as a presumptive cabinet appointee, he wants to expand work visas, which a lot of MAGA is unhappy with. And this has sort of been the response for Indians that vote conservative. It's been, well, they'll never accept you. Eventually, the leopards are going to eat your face. You'll see. But I don't think this is a very good argument for convincing them, and I'm about to explain why, but TikTok, I need you to understand that I'm about to explain a flawed line of reasoning. I'm going to explain the reasoning, and then I'm going to tell you why I disagree with it, so wait to type that angry comment. You have to remember that the definition of whiteness has changed throughout American history, right? It used to be white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. You had to be a WASP to be accepted, and people that were Catholics, Irish, and Italians were considered immigrants. Eventually, the Anglo-Saxon Protestant part was dropped, and Irish Americans and Italian Americans were also considered white. And a big part of that transition was them taking up jobs like becoming cops. By being complicit in the systems of oppression that created the class divide, they were able to gain acceptance into the oppressor class. And the whole while, racists were fighting it the whole way. The Klan, famously anti-Catholic, but eventually they lost. They lost favor because white people said, no, we're actually fine with Catholics. Eventually, we had a Catholic president. And this is a very cynical view of it, but I don't think that was a victory for religious tolerance. I think that was white Protestants saying, hey, we do not have the numbers to maintain this class division that we've enjoyed for so long. We need to accept the Catholics into our group if we're going to continue using black and brown people for labor. In a way, that's kind of a victory for tolerance because they chose to accept Catholics even though they knew it would alienate the most racist people. And so knowing this history, let's talk about present-day Indian Americans. And when I say Indian Americans, I'm mainly talking about the wave of Indian immigration that started in the 90s and has continued to present day. I don't mean to say that anybody that came before that isn't Indian or whatever, that's not what I'm saying. It's just that I'm about to talk about certain socioeconomic trends that are only relevant to this recent wave of immigration. Because immigrating to America is very difficult. You have to get a visa, which the most common types are work visas or education visas, which means you have to find an American job or get accepted into an American university, which is very hard to do. On top of that, you have to spend about $2,000 on a plane ticket. And when you live in a country where you can easily feed yourself for less than $1 a day, that's a lot of money. So Indian Americans tend to be outliers when you measure things like median household income or how many there are in the top 1%. Indian Americans only make up like 2 or 3% of the population. It's not an important demographic to pander to get votes, but it is an important demographic to get funding. So if you're on the left, you might see somebody like Vivek Ramaswamy or Bobby Jindal and say, how can you possibly be supporting the Republican Party? Like, look around you, it's all white people. Not only is it all white people, it's Klan members and white supremacists. But they're not idiots. I mean, they're evil, and they're certainly not smart, but they're not blind to these issues. They are counting on the fact that when it comes time to choose, the Republicans will choose Indian Americans over the racists, and I don't think that they're completely wrong. And throughout the election cycle, Trump was playing both fields, right? Trump wants the votes of the white supremacists, and he wants the votes of Indian Americans. If he embraces either side too much, then he loses the other. And it kind of worked. I mean, a majority of Indian Americans did not vote for Trump, but not a large majority. So there's a version of this where that 30 to 40% that voted for Trump aren't necessarily voting against their own race. They're voting for increased social mobility and access to wealth for Indian Americans at the expense of other minorities. And of course, the shared Islamophobia that's all too prevalent in Indian American communities plays a big part in that. While racism is a problem for Indian Americans, that is not exclusively coming from white people. You just have to look at the comment section of the last video where I talked about Indian culture to see examples of that. I think we should have a greater sense of BIPOC unity. Like, I've actively worked on programs in my community to help foster that, but I digress. And you might be thinking, okay, I hear you, but there's no way that Indian Americans would ever be considered white. I mean, Indians have brown skin. And you might be right, and there's also a colorism aspect where proximity to whiteness isn't offered evenly between light-skinned Indians and dark-skinned Indians. This wouldn't happen in the next 4 years. This would be a gradual shift. But you can already see the signs of this happening. Trump's cabinet picks are a bunch of white people and then Kash Patel and Vivek Ramaswamy. The incoming second lady, Usha Vance, is an Indian woman. So there's been a lot of discourse of people saying like, haha, this backlash means that the Republicans are tearing themselves apart. We get to just sit back and watch them implode. I don't think that's the case. I think that they knew this day was coming. They would eventually have to choose whether to let Indian Americans have a bigger piece of the pie, knowing that it would upset the white supremacists. And it seems to me that Republicans are choosing Indian Americans. And I take no pleasure in this, right? This is the bad outcome, even though it may help Indian Americans. I will not be included in that. People that make lengthy leftist TikToks that are publicly viewable do not get whatever they're offering. The silver lining, the small bit of satisfaction, is that it will upset the white supremacists, because they always get the short end of the stick. Remember that most Republicans aren't overtly racist, right? They will support policies that uphold systemic racism, but they're not going to outright say racist stuff. And they think nominally racism is bad. So when you have people like the Klan or neo-Nazis that are openly saying this stuff, that is a liability for the Republican Party. Republicans have always been happy keeping white supremacists at arm's length, because they're not going anywhere. They're not going to vote Democrat. They're sure as hell not going to become leftists. And they don't have enough support at a national scale to seriously run their own candidate. So I predict Trump will keep Vivek Ramaswamy and Kash Patel in his cabinet. It will score him points with Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, who's also very right-wing. He doesn't have to win another election, so who cares if the white supremacists throw a fit? That is what Vivek Ramaswamy and the Indian Americans that support him are banking on. When you tell those people, who are facing a lot of racism already, when you tell them, hey, the leopards might eat your face, they're thinking, the leopards have been trying to go for my face this whole time. No, this is the one way I gain enough power to stop those leopards once and for all. And I might be wrong, right? The white supremacists also have a lot of institutional power and generational wealth that they can leverage to move the Republican Party in the way that they want. And this battle over the nature of the Republican Party will probably continue for many years. The battle between white supremacists and Indian American conservatives, including probably some other minority groups that I'm not as familiar with. When we're trying to reach out to Indian Americans, our messaging cannot be, well, eventually they'll turn on you, because that may not be true. I think we get sucked into talking about racism when we should be talking about how to eliminate or at least reduce the class divide, rather than figuring out how to position ourselves favorably within it. This is a conversation that I know Indian Americans are already having, but we need to continue to do so, and I think very soon it's going to be brought into the public view. Now, if your response to watching this lengthy, nuanced video is to leave a comment making a blanket statement about all Indian people, don't! If your response is to blame another minority for these problems, don't do that. If the comments get too hairy, I might take this video down. I don't know yet. But if you're still here, maybe leave something nice in the comments. Thank you for watching this long, long video.
I see your boy Vivek got his Indian wake-up call.
Jesus Christ is God, and there is no other God. He is part of the Holy Trinity, and any other God is a demon, and it's false. How can you represent the constituents of Ohio who are 64% Christian if you are not a part of that faith? If you are an Indian, a Hindu, coming from a different culture, different religion than those who founded this country, those who grew this country, built this country, made this country the beautiful thing that it is today, what are you conserving? You are bringing change. I'll be 100% honest with you. Christianity is the one truth.
Christian voices should be the main voice of America, and I want to know basically why you seem to be, and I don't mean to be horribly offensive, but why you seem to be masquerading as a Christian.
If you call yourself a Hindu, but you also call yourself Christian.
I don't call myself Christian. I call myself a Hindu. I'm not running to be pastor of Ohio. I'm running to be governor of Ohio, and I didn't run to be pastor of America. I ran to be president of the United States of America.
I mean, this is at a Turning Point USA event. This is the culture that Charlie Kirk was cultivating. You got these young 20-something-year-old kids, 18 to probably 21, telling this honestly model American who's living out the real American dream that he's not good enough because of his religion. We all know this really isn't about Vivek's religion. It's because he's not white. But they're masking how they really care about him not being white into his religion. It just makes it easier to get your point across. They don't want a brown person running their state, and they don't want a brown person running their country. But again, this is why I'm a part of Unfuck America. This type of way of thinking is just everything but American. So if you want to help us with that cause, make sure you hit the links in my bio. You can donate or volunteer for our next event. And just remember, it can't just be me. It has to be all of them.
Vivek Ramaswamy met with the people that he wants to represent, right? The Maga supporters, the Charlie Kirk supporters, right? The Christian nationalists. He met with them, right? Boy, they turned that boy every which way but loose. Hey, yo, white folks, y'all did a good-ass job with that. I absolutely, it warmed my heart to see the blatant racism. It warmed my heart to see his people that he wants to represent tell him in his face, if your Indian ass don't get out of here, we don't want you here either. Yo, fork found in fucking kitchen. Like, we already knew this. But the fact that Vivek is sitting there trying to defend this is even more crazy. The dude said, you know, I don't really like legal immigration. What do you think about that? His parents immigrated here. The other kid said, little kid said, hey, how you supposed to represent us? You're an Indian. Oh, I mean, you're Hindu. Yo, you can't make it up. You can't make this up. This is like comic gold. Like, oh my God.
A quarter of the Republicans in the debate are Indian? When did that happen? Indian Americans have historically voted Democrat, and that's because the party backed the civil rights movement of 1965, which also repealed racist immigration laws that opened the doors for Indian immigration, including the parents of Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley. The US then instituted brain drain immigration policies, which meant that immigrants had to either be highly educated or highly skilled. That, along with their hard work, means today Indian Americans are on average twice as wealthy as the other Americans. So if the brain drain imported India's most talented, their financial success could explain a rightward shift in their fiscal values. But what about cultural alignment? See, Ramaswamy is a proud Hindu and a rising star in the party, but he's still facing Hinduphobia from parts of the Republican base. But others see him as a champion of the war on woke politics, in part because he said things like affirmative action is the single biggest form of institutional racism in America. Those kinds of beliefs may have been imported by the brain drain as well. See, the Ramaswamys are upper caste, as are many of those who've had the education to qualify for the visas required to migrate here. And many in those circles have long had grievances with India's affirmative action system, which is the world's oldest and largest, well before they were included by the American conservative.
No idea how a man like Vivek Ramaswamy could align himself with a party full of people who do shit like this on today. While he and his family celebrates Diwali, his political brethren are lighting up his comments, saying he will never be an American to them, saying they are baffled that he is even allowed to run for office in the United States because he is Indian, although he is an American citizen, saying we don't celebrate that in America, although we do. Approximately 3.4 million Americans are Hindu, so they celebrate, as do their allies, me being one. I celebrate Diwali too. And Kash Patel, director of the FBI, a far more far-right extremist, was met with the same racism. His political brethren posted shit like this, and like this, and like this. I will never understand how these leopards, how these men could align themselves with the leopards.
Day one? Hey, Daisy Jimmy Neutron, did you not take any lessons from what happened to Auntie? None? We tried to warn you. Tokens get spent. And apparently they were extra efficient because payroll didn't even have to take down your banking info. You couldn't make it to day one? Let this be a lesson to every other Uncle Dage out there. You will never be enough for them. Never. You are discardable, you are disposable, and as soon as they don't need you anymore, they will show your ass out. Let's check in on who else only has 30 minutes left.
You mix like me. You mix like, you know what's your problem? Your problem is that you really want to be a white girl.
Y'all remember Vivek Ramaswamy? Y'all remember him? He burst onto the scene running for president. You know, his tagline was, "I'm the little brown kid with the funny sounding name." We knew what he was trying to do. Anywho, so y'all know he's a biotech billionaire, right? He got his start in tech and pharma, whatever, right? Okay. So he was running for president and as a Republican. Anywho, y'all remember that there was an interview that he did with Ann Coulter, you know, the undead. And she told him, although they were in the same party and she liked some of his ideas, she would never vote for him because he wasn't white. Y'all remember that? He said that. She said that to his face, and he basically told her, "Hey, I appreciate your honesty." Let's fast forward. He decided to take himself over there to the deceased's business, you know, the deceased, to Turning Point, that place. And them people, the audience that consisted of mainly non-people of color, they hurled racist slurs at him. They told him that he will never be one of them. Basically, he will never get their vote. They don't care that he's a Republican. All they care about the fact that he's brown and he's Hindu. And so he's over there, you know, talking about, you know, his beliefs and whatnot. And they basically told him they don't care. He will never get their vote because he is not white. I am just here asking these questions. I know it's rhetorical because I know. But when are like the Latinos, for Syphilitic Sid, Tim Scott, Vivek, and a whole host, Candace, like when are y'all gonna understand that just because you may share certain conservative values that really are no...
This is Brown Boy Reviews, Episode 1. FBI Director Kash Patel and New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani. This is the duality of brown man. What do a U.S. conservative security advisor and a New York socialist politician have in common? If you guessed a brutal dictator in exile, you were right. No, not that brutal dictator. The shared history between Zohran Mamdani and Kash Patel dates back to 1972. This is Idi Amin. He expelled nearly 80,000 Indians from Uganda in an act of ethnic cleansing. Most of these families lived there for generations, and they were given just 90 days to leave. Fathers of these two men were amongst those that were forced out of Uganda as Indians. Both families fled, end up in the US, one via Canada and the other via South Africa. The same traumatic history, but two very different paths. Kash Patel becomes a key Trump ally, a conservative, and a national security icon. Mamdani, a democratic socialist fighting for housing and immigrant rights in New York City. Same history, different politics. Trauma does not dictate destiny. It shapes it in complex and sometimes opposing ways. Brown Boy ratings, Mamdani gets a 10 out of 10, and Kash Patel, 0.